Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, there's a lot of loud stuff happening directly above me for some reason. I have children and a wife and a dog up there, and stuff is rolling across the floor and loud footsteps and all that kind of stuff. And so if someone comes crashing through the ceiling and or you hear extremely loud noises behind me, that's what it is. But it would be the first time in podcast history that we had a lot of ambient background noise distracting the listener. So if that happens, I will apologize in advance.
Definitely thank you for that apology in advance, Tom. It would certainly be new to where instead of a mower or a goose or several geese, where you just have like somebody fall through the ceiling behind you, and then you just like stand up, brush it off, and be like, I'm okay. I'm good. Like that's, I think we do a lot of good content. I think that would be the best content.
Clark Griswold punching through the ceiling and then using it to his hands, to the heat from the floor below to heat his hands, warm his hands. Yes. Never understood why he didn't just climb through the hole that he had then made in the ceiling and then go lay on the, just slide down on the bunk bed that was right below. Seems like he could have gotten out of that attic and, but then, and then he sat on the, he sat right on top of the trap door out of the attic down to the main house, which was probably his second poor choice there. But anyway, Tony, we're not here to do theoretical critiques of the movie Christmas Vacation. We're here to answer listener questions. The first listener question is from @Codeth44. Will there be more sensible substitutions on defense compared to last year? Seems like guys were never really able to get into a rhythm, and when it seemed like they were, substitutions came in at the wrong times to interrupt the defensive flow.
Speaking of interrupting the rhythm, now I'm thinking of going back to these Chevy Chase movies where we just critique them. Like this was not a smart move by the character. Like this, he should have not done this at this point. And we just point out all of the errors that Chevy Chase makes in his movies.
So is this a theoretical third podcast that I would get to do? Because Tony, I mean, that seems like exactly what I need in my life is another podcast. Just go through every Chevy Chase movie. While you're talking about this, I will try and pull up Chevy Chase's IMDb page to see how many movies he's been in, because it feels like it's been a lot, and we would probably have a year or two of podcasts to do. So maybe you Chevy to the levee as just a first option for a podcast name. But I'll look for that. You answer the question, and then you also have to come up with a better podcast name. So we're going to be multitasking a little bit here,
right.
But
okay.
I'm sure it'll be excellent as always.
Yes, there will be more sensible solutions, substitutions for the defense this year. Because I agree. Last year, when sometimes it would be Cody Simon at middle linebacker, sometimes it would be Tommy Eichenberg. They had 4 linebackers that they were playing, and sometimes it would be Steel Chambers, sometimes it would be Taraja Mitchell, until Steel Chambers finally took over and Taraja Mitchell's numbers dwindled. I think what you'll have now is a cohesive defense where it's all Jim Knowles' defense and it is all done in unison. Where last year I would compare the 3 levels of defense, the secondary, the linebackers, and the defensive line to this year, it's going to be a boy band or a Motown group where they sing and they dance and they all dance in unison. Last year, they are all dancing to their own drummers, to their own beat, and it looked like it. And when you're watching that on stage, you're like, these guys did not practice. They have not rehearsed. They're not even listening to the same music. They look like this is the first time they've ever met. When you're dancing to your own beat, yeah, that's a great, nice wall hanging. It's not a good defense. And I think that was some of the problems last year. Now this year, they've done their rehearsals. They've got one band director. Not that a boy band has a band director, and not that a boy band is a good analogy for a defense. Of course, we will admit that. But I think they'll be on the same page. And so that now the substitutions that come in are done for reasons. Like this is a package, and we're bringing in this guy to do this, rather than, okay, now it's your turn to play. Because last year, I think there are some roles that weren't as defined as they will be moving forward. And I think this being Jim Knowles' defense, like there's no reason to be nice to anybody. Not that you're nice, but like we've got to win a championship. And we've got to have the best guys out there. And you can't just keep, well, now it's you. There has to be purpose behind everything. And I think there'll be more purpose moving forward.
One thing that also is probably going to help there is Jim Knowles is the guy who is in charge of the linebackers. So generally the position coach is the one who makes the personnel changes. So, they'll send out a certain, they'll say, hey, we're going to be in a 4-2-5, or on offense, we're going to be in 11 personnel or whatever it is. But then on offense, when they're in 11 personnel, Tony Alford's the one who's making the call on which running back is in the game. Brian Hartline's the one who's deciding which wide receivers are in the game. So on defense, if Jim Knowles is the one who's calling the defense, and Jim Knowles is also the one who's potentially deciding or involved in the decision on which linebackers are going out on the field, well, Jim Knowles is going to have a pretty good idea what Jim Knowles is going to want to do on the next few plays, which is going to let Jim Knowles put the right guys out there on the field. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Is Knowles up in the box? If Knowles is up in the box, you probably have someone else down there kind of running the linebackers for you. They brought over, Coy McFarland from Oklahoma State. So he might be the guy who's on the sideline on the headset with Knowles telling, the guys who are going in, but is Knowles going to be, in charge of that? You would think. And if not, Coy McFarland is someone who has worked with Knowles for a number of years, so he should have a pretty good idea what Knowles is what Knowles is planning on doing, and therefore who might be the best fit. But you also just holistically, this should be a little bit more of a structured defense. Last year was it was just a little bit of a mess. You didn't necessarily always feel like there was a big picture. There was a real good holistic understanding of the defense. There was a definite plan, and you're going to do this thing when this happens, or you're going to do this thing when that happens. You go through the shows that I did with Ross Fulton last fall, and it was just kind of like, yeah, they're just kind of doing stuff, and it's pretty predictable. And, even when it got better, it was still relatively basic. And Ross talked after the spring game about the fact that, this was a fairly base Ohio State defense in the spring game, and it was still probably a little bit more involved than a lot of the stuff they did last fall. So, there's going to be a lot of different changes, but more than anything else, you would think that the fact that Knowles is in charge of the linebackers and Knowles is also in charge of the defense, that's going to help a lot in terms of figuring out who goes where. And then your corners are going to be in there until they're tired or they get hurt, and then you're going to rotate someone else in there. It feels like they've got 4 corners that they probably will be comfortable playing at some point this season, but you can only change so many different things there, and there's not necessarily going to be a Jordan Hancock package or a J.K. Johnson package. It's kind of like, yeah, Cam Brown just had to chase a guy down the field twice on a 9 route in a row, so he's going to need a quick break, so you're going to put Jordan Hancock in for him, something like that. So yeah, I think all of that's going to help quite a bit. Now, Tony, back to your point about Chevy Chase. Would you like to guess how many movies Chevy Chase has on his IMDb page as an actor?
49.
101. So, Tony, that means we can do 100 episodes of the podcast and never talk about the movie Fletch Lives. I think we almost have to do it at this point. Your thoughts?
Well, the title, how about Chasing Chevy?
I don't hate it.
And then at some point on like episode 36, I'll be like, and as I've said in the previous 35 episodes, if he would just have watched his step, he wouldn't have fallen. Like if you just watch where you're going, you wouldn't have fallen. You wouldn't have crashed your car. If you would just read the road signs, if maybe you would have called ahead, something like that. Like a lot of solutions, you need to just prepare more. And I did see on Twitter the other day where, or TikTok, somebody passing by an exact replica of the family truckster on the highway. And that made me smile.
Did you know, Tony, that he was in the TV series Law and Order in one episode in 2006?
I did not. Was he playing himself?
He was not. He was playing a guy named Mitch. So his first appearance was in a short called Singing Faces in 1968. He's in 3 shorts and a TV series before he was in his first National Lampoon TV special. So, are we going to do this? I don't know, maybe, but I'm closer to saying yes than I would have thought possible. So, Also, there's a possibility that some other jerk has stolen this idea before us. And, if you are thinking, oh, maybe I should, nope, sorry, trademark. We just said the word trademark, so now you can't do it. So that's how law works. Next one from Zalexan. If Ryan Day had his way, how would the QB room shake out through the time Raiola is in his second and third year? And Tony has helpfully put together a chart for the next few years. 2023, this is all presuming no transfers, everything stays exactly as is, which I'm sure is exactly how this will all play out. 2023, you've got Kyle McCord, who'd be in his third year, Devin Brown in his second year, and then true freshman quarterback TBD. Alex Gleitman floated a couple possible names for those earlier in the week, but that's still very much up in the air, and that's not atypical for this time of year for Ohio State. You go back last year, this time, no one was talking about Devin Brown. You go back 2 years this time, no one was talking about CJ Stroud. This is just, sometimes these decisions get made later in the cycle. They already have their 2024 quarterback in Dylan Raiola. They do not have their 2023 one, and I don't know that there's necessarily a clear-cut number one likely guy there. So 2024, Kyle McCord as a fourth-year quarterback, if he is still around and not in the NFL. Devin Brown as a third-year quarterback, redshirt freshman quarterback TBD, and then Dylan Raiola as a true freshman. So then the question starts with 2025, where you've got Devin Brown as a fourth-year quarterback, the mystery quarterback as a redshirt sophomore, Dylan Raiola as a redshirt freshman and or sophomore there, and true freshman quarterback potentially Ryan Montgomery. He is the younger brother, of course, of Luke Montgomery from Findlay. He is, I would say I would agree with Tony there. If you were going to put a name on the 2025 quarterback, he's the name you would put on there. How interesting is it that we have 2024 and 2025 names and not a 2023 name? Welcome to recruiting. And then 2026, you have the mystery guy from this year, redshirt sophomore / junior Raiola, redshirt freshman / sophomore Montgomery, and then true freshman who is a 2026 who don't even ask. I guess, realistically, you're not keeping all of these guys. That's just, whether it's 2023, CJ Stroud, let's just sort of play this out. CJ Stroud leaves after 2022 and goes and is a top 5, top 10 NFL draft pick. Then the 2023 spring ball is Kyle McCord and Devin Brown and whoever the true freshman is. Those are your three quarterbacks this upcoming season. And then there is a possibility that whoever, if there is a clear-cut winner coming out of spring, that whoever is not the clear-cut winner ends up leaving. That's a possibility. It's not a guarantee. It's a possibility. So then you have one of those guys potentially, and then the redshirt freshman, and then Raiola, and then, the year after that, so Raiola's third year, you would assume if let's just say both of those guys are gone, both Brown and McCord are gone for 2025, and that's probably realistic. Because even if Brown sticks around, wins the job in 2024, and right now the pattern has been Dwayne Haskins left after 3 years, Justin Fields left after 3 years, CJ Stroud is probably leaving after 3 years, Kyle McCord leaves after 3 years in 2023, Devin Brown leaves after 3 years in 2024. Like that seems very much like the pattern here. So then you've got whoever the 2022 quarterback is, and again, or 2023, sorry, whoever the guy is who they sign in 6 months from now, you got him as a third-year player. You've got Raiola as a second-year player, and then you got a true freshman in Ryan Montgomery. That feels like, okay, you've got whoever they sign this year. You've got Raiola fighting for the starting job. Ryan Montgomery, sure, you come in, you compete for the job. It's very difficult to win that job as a true freshman with talented guys ahead of you. But, that feels like that's a pretty decent setup there. And then, it's just restocking that room is the challenge. If you're losing guys every 3 years, keeping that room stocked, having enough bodies in there, you're probably bringing in a transfer at some point, or you're bringing in 2 quarterbacks in a class. It just feels like there's, this is very hard to project several years out because of all of the moving parts that are involved here. But, if you do have the 2023 guy and a second-year guy in Raiola and a first-year guy in Ryan Montgomery, hypothetically in this situation, in 2025, that's probably a pretty good situation. That's about as good a situation as you could really expect to be in if you're Ryan Day, I think.
Yeah, and Ryan Day wants 4 scholarship quarterbacks, but I don't know that you can expect a fourth year. Having a quarterback around for their 4th year is going to be rare, and it's going to require them to either not transfer, obviously, or not, or say no to the NFL, basically, because you wouldn't expect a guy to sit for 3 years and then start in his 4th year. You would expect that he would be starting before then, because he's not going to wait around for 4 years to start. So he sits for 2 years and then starts in his 3rd year. And then if you're good enough to start at Ohio State, at this point, we have to assume you are good enough to play in the NFL. And so then it becomes a decision where you need a quarterback to say no to the NFL. And that's really hard for them to do when they're coming to Ohio State to get to the NFL. So when that opportunity arises, why would they? It will be interesting to see the examples laid forward for the quarterbacks moving forward with Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, and now CJ Stroud, to see how well they do it. And are there any, cautionary tales in there in terms of, what, let me come back for another year, and will the correlation be there? Will the realization also be there where, well, I've seen what happens to others, let me go for another year? Or will they just be like everybody else? Well, this isn't going to happen to me.
Let me answer that question with a question, Tony. Does Tennessee continue to sign high school football players?
Yeah. Well, do they just wait for everybody's runoff and transfers? I think. Well, let's see how this Nico, the money goes there and how that works. But I still think the money is better spent out of the portal, right? And with the quarterbacks that we've seen go in, it's going to be interesting moving forward to see how that changes quarterback recruiting. But I mean, Lincoln Riley was able to do it, but it's changing over every year unless you're lucky to get a sophomore like he did this year, like getting Caleb Williams, who's a true freshman last year. That's, you're fortunate to be able to do that, because a lot of times if you're just getting a new quarterback every year, that's tough to that's a tough way to live.
It is a tough way to live because your hit rate's not going to be 100%. And then you have the 1 year where it doesn't hit, and all of a sudden it falls apart pretty quickly. I think Clemson had that last year you had a run of really good quarterbacks at Clemson for quite a while. And then you had the 1 year with DJ Uiagalelei where he's not, I'm not calling him a bust yet, but he had accuracy issues last year that kind of derailed their season, especially early in the year. So, you have 1 year where it doesn't work, and all of a sudden it kind of falls apart pretty quickly. So, on the Ohio State piece that you were just talking about, it feels like this cycle of 3-year quarterbacks is going to kind of continue, because you're bringing in a caliber of player who is good, a caliber of player who is coming in with the pedigree and the expectation that they're going to be an NFL quarterback. And there just aren't that many of those guys who right now are going to be willing to sit, and either you don't fall in one of two boxes. Number one, I'm such a talented quarterback that I won the Ohio State starting quarterback job. But also, number two, I'm not quite talented enough to be ready to go off to the NFL after 3 seasons. Like, that seems like there's a pretty narrow window there that, you're not going to have that many guys fall into that bucket. So we'll see. You never know. I am fascinated to see some of these transfer portal things sort of play out over the next few years, where if you have a bunch of guys who transfer and then that starts getting held against them in terms of the NFL, does the NFL start saying, hey, we want a guy who's been in the same system for a few years. We want a guy who's been developed by the same guy for a couple of years, does at some point the transfer portal become a character flaw, quote unquote, that they're, a red flag that they're looking at in the NFL draft? This is all stuff that we don't know yet. And it's impossible to know because there are guys who go into the portal every year and don't find a home. It's like close to a majority of guys, it feels like at this point, go into the portal and then don't necessarily find a landing spot. So does that become a cautionary tale at some point? We'll see. But yeah, there are a lot of moving pieces there with that question. A lot of moving pieces here with this question as well from our old friend Langdon Alger. If you have to bet on one conference game this year to boldly predict Ohio State going 220, which game are you taking? And if you are new to the podcast, 220 means running for 220 yards and passing for 220 yards in the same game. It is Tony and I do a bold prediction show in the fall before every game. It is the bane of my existence because it sounds so reachable. It sounds like absolutely why they should do this every game, shouldn't they? And then they don't, except for the weeks in which I don't pick them to do it. And then Tony gets the points that week, and then I want to scream. So this to me, and as someone who does an extremely good job predicting when they are going to go 220, 220, I feel like I should go first because I am obviously the expert here in this particular realm. To me, when they go 220, 220, when they don't go 220, 220, it's because they're not running the ball that much. They have generally, run for 150 or 180 yards, and then they throw for 350 yards, 400 yards, something like that. That is sort of how these games have typically played out the last couple of years. So the question then becomes, when are they going to run for 220 yards? When are they going to be that run heavy? The answer to me is one of the conference games where they're up by 1 trillion points, and then you're running out the second half, and you kind of get there with, the second and third string running back carrying the ball 15, 20 times in the second half. So to me, this is either Rutgers or at Northwestern. I'm going to say, most likely, I'm going to say at Northwestern because that's November 5th, I think. You're getting into, if you have not been to Northwestern Stadium, it is right on Lake Michigan. So you get the wind, you get some bad weather, it's November. That's also far enough into the season, you kind of are in the let's just get out of here and get home kind of just get out of here without any injuries. Northwestern is going to be real bad this year is what it sort of looks like right now. So you're probably putting up some pretty numbers in the first half. Maybe you're throwing for 220 yards in the first half. And then the whole second half, you're just trying to grind clock and get out of there. So I think to me, Tony, that is the most likely scenario.
Yeah, my initial pick was Rutgers. And if you look last year, they only rushed for 220 yards in 3 games last year. And of course, everybody famously remembers, Tom, this is your white whale. And a couple of times in those first 3 weeks, you're going for the 220. And an Akron game comes along, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go 220. I'll make that prediction. I'll make that bold prediction. And it was the time they hit. And it was the first time all year. The second time was Purdue. So 2 questionable defenses. However, the another interesting aspect is, so they did it twice last year. They did it twice in 2020. Tom, would you care to guess which 2 games they did it in 2020? And again, you may not remember the games offhand. Nebraska, Penn State, Rutgers, Indiana, Michigan State, Northwestern, Clemson, Alabama.
My initial instinct is to say that they did it against Michigan State because they ran up a bunch of points in that game and they had the backup offensive line in there. So I don't think they were throwing the ball tremendously well. So I'm going to say Rutgers, and no, the second half against Rutgers was kind of stupid. So I'm going to say Michigan State. And did they do it against Northwestern? Did they throw for enough yards against Northwestern to do it? Because they ran for 1,000,000 yards that game. I don't know if they threw for enough against Northwestern to get there.
They threw for 114 yards against Northwestern. They did it against Indiana, which finished number 7 in the nation, 307 and 300 rushing and passing. And they also did it against Clemson, 254 and 385. So they did it against top 10 opponents in 2020, and they did it against much lesser, the worst opponent in Akron, and another poor opponent in Purdue. So who knows what to think in terms of how they will do it this year. I guess maybe you got to go with a similar team as in 2021 and 22, given the similar quarterbacks and offenses. So yeah, I think Rutgers, I think Maryland, but I'm also wondering if it's like an Indiana where it's a sustained game and it's a fight and you've got to stay multiple and balanced throughout the entire thing. But I'll go Rutgers because, again, I'm with you. I think you're running the ball in the fourth quarter. And same thing with Northwestern. I'm just going to go Rutgers because it's at home and Northwestern's on the road, and that can get a little hinky.
All right, next one from Langdon Olger. What are your best bets for week 0 and week 1 of the college football season? I'll run through a few of the lines that you have set aside here. Week 0 is Nebraska -9 versus Northwestern. We're spending a lot of time talking about Northwestern today, which means it's going to be a great show. That game, of course, in Ireland, because sure, why not? Let's add a few more. The most reliable things absolute constants. You can set your watch to Nebraska football and Northwestern football. Absolutely consistent performers. Sure, ship them across the Atlantic. Just add a little bit more volatility there. Week 1 games, Pitt -6.5 against West Virginia. The old backyard brawl is back. I'm pretty excited for that one. That's a Thursday night to open the season. Penn State -3 at Purdue. That's also a Thursday night. That is the one that Fox traded for Joe Buck. So that is another good one. Florida -1.5 hosting Utah in the Swamp in Gainesville. Georgia -16.5 against Oregon, and LSU -4.5 against Florida State. Any of those jump out to you as maybe one that you think is the most likely to hit?
I think in terms of the most likely, I'm going to steer clear of Nebraska early season and Northwestern early season because they are both idiots early in the season. Like Northwestern especially, how many times have we seen them lose to a MAC school early on or whatever? Nebraska, I was just looking through to see how often Nebraska has been a 9-point favorite in Big Ten play and what are the results. The last time they were, they ended up losing. The time, which was last year, is in 2020. I don't have the 2021 lines in front of me, but 2019 they were like a 9-point favorite, 13-point favorite at Illinois and won by 4. So I'm going to steer clear of that one. Penn State -3 at Purdue. It feels like, obviously it's week 1, so all of these lines should be cautious. But if you're asking me to put money on any of these right now, I might take Utah. Give me the points. I know it's in the Swamp. It's the season opener, but like Utah's got a defense. They're just solid, and you're kind of looking for something you know what to expect. And I think out of all of these, you know what to expect most out of Utah.
Yeah, and I think my counter to that would be the world is not so beautiful a place that Utah would go into the Swamp and win, and you'd have the SEC coach in his first game immediately just, imagine the wailing and gnashing of teeth. Florida feels like that's a spot where, now I'm blanking on his name, came from Utah, Billy Napier. Billy Napier came from Louisiana and has been very, very cautious about setting expectations there. He is not, he has not done what Willie, goodness, now I can't remember anyone's name.
Taggart.
Willie Taggart. When he came into Florida State, he was kind of talking up, we're going to have an immediate, we're going to really have an immediate good team. I think this team is ready to compete. You're getting kind of the very opposite vibe from Billy Napier, and that's smart. You set low expectations, and then if you go 9-3, it's like, they exceeded expectations, and as opposed to setting high expectations and then going 6-6 or whatever Taggart did, and then being out in the middle of your second season. So I'm not completely sold on Florida. Florida being so bad that they're gonna struggle with Utah. Utah. Ohio State fans are familiar with Utah. But Utah, I think, also is a team that is a week 1. I think that's probably, you looked up when that's projected to happen. If that's a day game, I don't think Salt Lake City has prepared you for afternoon in the Swamp in the first week of the season. So I think that might be one where even if Utah gets out to a lead, you might see Florida come back and win it. And if Utah just kind of melts into a puddle,
I think Georgia's the right answer here.
Georgia might be the right answer. I think Oregon's kind of, again, Dan Lanning taking over at Oregon, former Georgia defensive coordinator. Georgia has lost so many guys off that defense, but the game is in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. I think that's definitely part of, it's in the conversation here. I honestly, this is me. Watch me step on this landmine. Everyone ready? I'm going to take a step. Ready? Here it is. Look, ready? There's the landmine. Nebraska -9 versus Northwestern. I think Northwestern is going to be so bad this year. I think Northwestern is going to be so bad this year. That game could be 20-10, and Nebraska doesn't have to do a whole heck of a lot. They just have better players than Northwestern does. I think Northwestern is going to be real bad. And, I say this knowing that last year it was like, well, Nebraska going in First year, Brett Bielema. What could possibly go wrong? And then Cam Taylor-Britt somehow almost takes a safety on a kick return or whatever it was. Nebraska cannot be as bad as they were last year. They cannot be it is not mathematically possible for Nebraska to be as bad as they were last year. I think I like Nebraska there, -9. Pitt, 6.5 at West Virginia. I think Pitt is going to take a pretty big step back this year as well. You lost Kenny Pickett. You lost Jordan Addison. That was a team that everything kind of lined up right for them. I think that's going to be night game in Morgantown. That is a huge rivalry. Neil Brown, I keep waiting for
That's at Pitt.
Oh, it's at Pitt? Oh, well.
6.5 is not bad.
Yeah, all right. If it's at Pitt.
Keaton Slovis, baby.
Yeah, all right. I was thinking that was in Morgantown. All right. All right. So we'll pass on that one. Yeah, Georgia. I mean, I think you think about week one of the season, and how often you're sitting there. I'm sure you, dear listener, are sitting at home and just really rooting for the SEC to blow some of these games, and they never do. And it's just, Georgia has a statement win over Oregon. Florida beats Utah, and the Pac-12 is already out of the national championship hunt, and it's not even Labor Day yet. Like it just sort of feels like you're headed towards a bunch of that stuff. So, all right, Tony, give me Nebraska. Ugh, give me Nebraska.
Do you want any part of LSU -4.5 versus Florida State?
I don't. I mean, what level of confidence do you have in either of those programs right now? I mean, this is Brian Kelly year 1, Mike Norvell year 3, I think, and it's like which one of those programs do you have more than a 25% confidence that they're going to win more than 7 games this year?
I have more confidence in LSU, and now the thing is, this is a neutral site game played in New Orleans, so I'm not interested in putting any money on that. I have more confidence in LSU and Brian Kelly. I need to see some reason to have confidence in Florida State. I have reason to be confident in Brian Kelly. We've seen him do well everywhere he's been. I have no reason from Florida State, and but again, if your quarterback play, and it's been so bad at LSU, and getting rid of Max Johnson, should help, but I'm not. I was just wondering if you were interested in that, because I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it feels like, of course, LSU is going to win, but also, I mean, go back 12 months. And you will listen to me saying with more confidence in my voice than anything else I've said in the last 12 months, well, obviously LSU is going to go out to UCLA and just curb stomp the Bruins, because they're going to win in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And then they went out west, Tony, and they just got their heads kicked in. And so you kind of wonder what's going on, because it was not like UCLA was an absolute mauler all season. It was just like, LSU just didn't have what you sort of would come to expect in the trenches, and this being a transition year now, I wonder. I don't really have a tremendous amount of faith in either of those teams. So, yeah, I mean, Tony, I think Nebraska's my best bet here. What could possibly go wrong? Let's end with a question that I think we probably have a much better answer on, from @JasonSmall36. Bearded Ryan Day or clean-shaven Ryan Day? Which one do we like better? Clean-shaven Ryan looks like a middle schooler. Bearded Ryan looks like a mercenary. Tony, which one you got?
I'm with you, with Jason, that bearded Ryan Day looks more serious. Ryan Day also prefers the beard, and the only reason he wasn't wearing a beard on game days before was because he didn't want to jinx anything, and then they lose to Oregon, and it's like, all right, let's move to the beard, and whatever happens, happens. And so, but now, bearded Ryan Day has lost to Michigan. So, I wonder, and it's so silly. Coaches do all of this preparation, all of this work, 120 hours a week of like trying to maximize everything about your team. I wonder how much thought goes into, yeah, but I lost with Michigan. I lost to Michigan with the beard. Do I get rid of it? Like how much How much time does Ryan Day give to that thought?
You know, I feel like the answer to this is Ryan Day looks better with the beard. I think Ryan Day feels the answer is Ryan Day looks better with the beard. But I really, truly wonder. I mean, coaches are creatures of habit. Coaches are control freaks. And, you know, they lost to Oregon, and he grew the beard out. It was like, well, what else could possibly go wrong? And then they lose to Michigan. And you just wonder. I mean, obviously, he had like somewhat jokingly said, you know, it was a good luck thing that he shaved before the season. And then, you know, it changed after they lost. So it's like, well, how jokingly was he saying that the last time? So I would genuinely not be shocked if we saw a clean-shaven Ryan Day run out of the tunnel for the Notre Dame game on September 3rd or whatever that is. Yeah, I feel like there's an answer for which one I think he pulls off better. But yeah, it just feels like I think there's a real possibility he changes his mind on that again before the season.
What if he goes with a beard, except for the Michigan game, he shaves?
Then what happens? Well, if they win that game, then
can you go back?
He has to keep. Yeah, he can never go back again. And you feel like that's the, you know, it feels like he kind of has his thumb on the scale. Like he knows what he wants the answer to be, but that's not necessarily the answer. So, and I mean, Tony, statistically, I think you can say we've talked about correlation and causation a bunch of times in the past on this podcast. Correlation 1-to-1. Ryan Day has a beard. Ryan Day loses to Michigan. Ryan Day does not have a beard. Ryan Day does not lose to Michigan. I mean, I'm not here to argue with science, Tony.
You say you can't go back. Now I'm imagining Field of Dreams, where Moonlight Graham, you know, steps onto the field and it's like, oh, and Kevin Costner realizes, oh, you can't go back. Like he beats Michigan without the beard, and then people are like, oh, you can't go back. And then Ryan Day's like, it's okay. Like it's totally fine. I got to experience this, and so we're all good. And so don't be heartbroken if he can't go back after beating Michigan. Just appreciate the moments that you've had and saving that little girl's life. She was choking on a hot dog.
I've always felt like Kevin Costner should have figured that out. Like your kid's eating a hot dog, just took a big bite of a hot dog and fell back off the bleachers. What'd you think the problem was there, champ? Like, come on, you don't need you can crack, you know the Heimlich maneuver. You can solve this on your own. You don't need a doctor to do the Heimlich maneuver. It'll be fine. I was always a little unclear why she got knocked unconscious. So maybe it was a couple things at play there, but she seemed to perk right up after she got the hot dog out. So I'm not sure. That may not have been, I'm not sure if that was a 100% scientifically accurate movie, is I guess what I'm saying, but only in the hot dog bleacher scene. Everything else, yes. Everything else completely scientifically accurate, just like the Ryan Day, Michigan, beard, no beard correlation.
I do like the fact that the doctor, what does the doctor do medically? He sits her up and just smacks her on the back, like just whack, boom. Like they do it at birth, smack him on the butt. They're choking, smack him in the back. They're like coughing, smack him in the head. Like these crazy 1900s doctors and their wackadoo medical practices. I just love it. I love it. Tom, anything else? Or are we done? Anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you want to mention? Anything else you want to prolong the show with?
I sure hope not. I think we're done. We've got to go start mapping out episodes for our new show. So that was we have that to look forward to. We'll get even more podcasts from us. Who could possibly say no to that? Don't answer that question.
Okay, I'll put my hand down. All right, that will do it then. Thank you all for the questions as always. Thank you for helping us out get through the May and the June as we do these shows for you. Remember that we don't do this for us. We do it for you guys. So we appreciate that. You appreciate us. We know that you can appreciate us more rating and reviewing us 5 stars of full appreciation, which would be appreciated by us. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in as always. And we'll talk to you guys later.